The Galactic Council's verdict echoed through the crystalline halls of Station Epsilon 7, cold and final as the void itself. Myra stood before the assembled delegates, her small frame dwarfed by the towering forms of a dozen alien species, each more imposing than the last. The human educator will vacate this facility within one solar rotation, announced Councillor Vex, his chitinous plates clicking with bureaucratic satisfaction. Humanity's provisional teaching license has been revoked. Your species lacks the temperament for shaping young minds. Myra's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Around the council chamber, she could see the same disdain reflected in multiple eyes, faceted and singular, that had greeted humanity since they'd stumbled into the galactic community 3 decades prior. Too emotional, too violent, too unpredictable. The council had tolerated her presence at the Interspecies Youth Development Center for 2 years, but tolerance had finally worn thin. The incident that triggered her dismissal had been absurdly minor. She'd raised her voice at a Krillian administrator who'd been mistreating the students. By human standards, barely a reprimand. By galactic standards, an unforgivable display of aggression. Understand, Myra said quietly, forcing the words past the lump in her throat. She thought of the children, cubs, hatchlings, spawn, the 100 different terms for youth across the galaxy waiting in her classroom 3 levels below. 24 hours later, Myra packed her belongings in the small quarters she'd called home. The room felt hollow now, stripped of the personal touches that had made it bearable. Photographs of Earth, a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are, the clay sculpture little Vexique had made for her last rotation, a lumpy approximation of a human that still made her smile. A soft chime at her door. Myra frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. The other teachers had already made their positions clear with their absence. The door slid open to reveal Tavrin, a young Quillian whose spotted fur was barely beginning to show his adult patterns. At 7 rotations old, he was one of her oldest students. His large, liquid eyes evolved for a dimmer sun than Earth's blinked at her solemnly. "Teacher Myra," he said in the careful standard galactic she'd helped him perfect. "May I enter?" "Tavrin, what are you doing here? It's late cycle." "You should be in the dormitories." "Yes, teacher." He didn't move, his prehensile tail curling and uncurling with anxiety. But we heard. All the cubs heard. "You're leaving." Myra's chest constricted. "I am. I'm sorry, Tavrin." "The council has decided, we're coming with you." The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Myra stared at the young Quillian, certain she'd misheard. "What? We're coming with you," Tavrin repeated, and now Myra noticed the small satchel slung across his narrow shoulders. "All of us. 23 cubs from 12 species. We've gathered our things." "Tavrin, you can't," Myra started, but movement in the corridor caught her eye. Behind Tavrin stood a cluster of small figures, each carrying their own belongings. She recognized them all. Vexic, with his crystalline carapace still soft with youth. Little Nessa, whose 3 eye stalks drooped when she was sad. The twin morphid spawn who still couldn't quite manage separate sentences. Kree, the avian whose feathers were just coming in. All of them. Her entire class. "Teacher Myra," said Vexic, his voice box crackling with emotion. "You showed us something our own species forgot. You showed us it's okay to feel things." Nessa's eye stalks quivered. "You cried when Kree's translation device broke and he couldn't talk for 2 days. You cried in front of all of us. Our parents don't cry," added one of the morphid twins. "The other teachers don't get angry," continued the other twin. "They don't laugh until their faces turn red," Tavrin said. "They don't hug us when we're scared. They don't tell us stories about monsters that are really just lonely children." Myra felt tears, those damned 2 human tears welling up. "Your families." "My sire said," Tavrin interrupted gently, "that the council is composed of fools who've forgotten what it means to teach. He said if I wanted to follow you, he'd find a way to make it legal." "My hive mother agreed," Vexic added. "She said humans understand something about youth that we've lost in our civility." One by one, the cubs spoke. Each had received permission, grudging, confused, but permission nonetheless from their guardians. The story was the same across species lines. Parents who'd noticed changes in their children. Cubs who came home excited about learning. Spawn who talked about emotions and friendship and imagination concepts that had been systematically educated out of galactic youth culture in favor of efficiency and logic. "We don't have a ship," Myra said weakly, even as hope began to kindle in her chest. "My colony's transport arrives in 3 hours." said Vexig. I may have mentioned to the captain that 24 passengers need conveyance to the human settlement on Proxima Station. 25, Tavern corrected. You're the 25th, Teacher Myra. The full weight of what they were offering crashed over her. These children, these brave, impossible children, were willing to leave the only educational system their species had ever known because a too emotional human had taught them it was okay to feel. The council won't like this, Myra said, but she was already smiling. Good, said Cree in his newly repaired translator, his feathers ruffling with what Mira had learned was avian defiance. Maybe they'll learn something. 3 hours later, Counselor Vex stood at the observation deck, watching a colonial transport depart. Station Epsilon 7. Intelligence reports were already flooding in 23 cubs from influential families, all voluntarily abandoning their structured education to follow a human teacher to an unregulated settlement. Sir, his aide ventured carefully. Should we intervene? Vex's plates clicked slowly as he watched the transport's engines flare. On his personal tablet, messages from 24 family units glowed with variations of the same message. Our children will learn from the human. Perhaps you should too. No, he said finally. I suspect intervention would be unwise. In the transport's cargo hold, converted into an impromptu classroom, Myra read to 24 cubs from a worn book about a boy who sailed to an island of monsters. They listened with rapt attention. 12 species unified by something their own cultures had nearly bred out of them, the simple, dangerous, beautiful ability to feel. And somewhere in the void between stations, humanity gained 24 unexpected advocates. And the galaxy learned a lesson the Council had tried to suppress. You could order a human to leave, but you couldn't stop those who'd learned to feel from following.